Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching live today at the Global AI Community Notes. Can you imagine we're already at season 3? We've had so many awesome guests already, and I can already tell you for sure that we'll have a very nice lineup for season 3 this year also. Now, enough about what's coming the next couple of weeks. We of course want to know what's happening today. Today we're going to talk about GitHub models. Yes, not Azure OpenAI models or Llama models, no, GitHub models. So what is that? Well, therefore, of course, we invited a new guest, and that's going to be Amy, and she will join us in a second. Good evening to you, Amy. You're in the evening time zone, of course. How are you doing?
I am doing well, thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Global AI Community, for having me on Global AI Notes.
Well, we're very happy you could make some time and also your busy agenda. I don't think I was thinking about it, and just you having a single session of us in the Global AI community, like we had Global AI talks in the past and Global AI Notes. I don't think you've ever been just in a single one episode or something.
No, I always actively engage with Global AI Community. I found our picture the last time me and you did some hosting together for, gosh, I don't even know which Global AI Community it was, but I was at home, definitely, but you were in the studio, so I feel like it may be 2021, something like that. And yeah, always a pleasure to get involved with the Global AI Community work. But this time, yeah, excited to share some of the stuff I've seen so far around GitHub models, which is super exciting.
What is GitHub models, Amy?
It's a good question. Your intro, actually, I had never thought of it in that way before. GitHub models almost sounds like GitHub are building their own models in some senses. That is not what GitHub models is. So don't worry. It's not another model yet to figure out what version, what does this do best, where do I use it, that kind of stuff. No, GitHub models is a fantastic developer tool. GitHub do wonderful developer tools. We all know that. And what it is obviously we're all building these generative AI applications, but there's a lot of like click, okay, I need to like deploy an endpoint and get access to it. And the irony is we don't really know what we're building, right? We're just trying to try it out and see what happens. And so one of the fantastic things about GitHub models is that the most popular models that are available in the Azure AI Studio are now available for free in GitHub models, rate limited. Nothing's ever truly free, right? So for experimentation and development purposes, you can just super easy access these APIs and then be able to start using them in applications so that you can see what they can do, what are they capable of, what are they good at, what are they not good at, all of those different kinds of things. So think develop an easy way to access models such as Cohere, Llama, which one's Llama 3 is in here, he said Llama 2, Mistral, and various different ones they've got, small, large, Nemo, GPT-4o, and then 4o mini as well, lots of text embedding stuff in there. So they're not like the old ones or anything. It's like the new ones as well that are available for free. But one of the things I definitely want to show you is just how easy they are to access. I think that for anyone watching
That's
this.
my first question to you. How easy is it? Can you show us to
Oh,
us?
of course. I mean,
Okay.
should we
Let
jump
me
straight
put your
in?
screen up. Yeah, you're
This is my
up.
screen. Wonderful. That was seamless. So here is my screen. First things first, how do you even get to this page, right? Because this doesn't look like your, profile in GitHub or anything like that. So if you go to gh.io/models, that's kind of a quick link that will get you to this page. If it doesn't take you straight there is currently, as of today, so start of September, a wait list. So it might take you to a wait list page, fill that in. People are being let in and stuff like that. But obviously, hold tight and hopefully you'll get access soon. But let me show you what it is before you go put yourself on that list. So here we are. Let me zoom in a little bit, actually. Apologies. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So GitHub models actually sit in the marketplace. So if you ever use the marketplace for like apps or Copilot, for example, on GitHub, it's in exactly the same place, but with this little models category. And then down here, some of those models that I mentioned are listed in ways that I think we're getting used to seeing them like this. They call them a model card in most places, and it sort of describes what it does, what it's good for, how you can get access to the documentation and stuff like that. And so I think these look like they're in alphabetical order. So you got some Meta.
A little bit of the Onyx Zoo that we had are still there.
I'm not sure actually whether that one was sitting in it. It is a select few, so it's not if you've already had access to say Azure AI and the models that are available in the model catalog. There are like, I think it's topping like 1,700 and something at this point. There's not as many as that. It is a select few, but the only thing I would say is they are some of the most popular ones in some senses, and the ones people are avidly trying to try out right now. I think OpenAI for me are probably the most familiar at the moment. So looking at GPT-4o and 4o mini, as well as obviously the sort of more later embedding option as well, which is great. Got some wonderful Phi models down here, some small language models as well, which is great to see. So you've got a real mix of different providers that you can try out. So if we click into one of these, we'll go 4o because they're very well versed with it. You come to sort of mini playground experience. So you've got the model card here, a little bit of an explanation of what it does, a couple of resources you can go to, OpenAI ones. Another thing to note, different things. When was it last trained? What is the rate limit here? You can go and open this and actually see what that means. And this is the documentation. It's very simple documentation for a very simple solution, which I like to see.
But the details are a bit
click on
what we can find in the OpenAI Studio, right?
Say that again, sorry, Sammy.
The details we see right now are quite the same as what we see in the OpenAI Studio. Yeah.
Very, very similar, right? So playground, change your parameters. For me, so obviously all of this is on our and it's wonderful because you can try it out here. You can swap between models just up here. Like it's a nice but simple experience. But this isn't the bit that I am very, very excited about. The bit I am very, very excited about is actually this green getting started button up in the top right here, because that opens up what I think is the value here, which is less playing with these things in the playground and more being able to put them into our code like straight away, right? And actually be able to use them and build on top of some fantastic samples as well. So one of the nice things here, choose your language. So currently Python, JavaScript, C# and REST are being currently in here. And then underneath SDK, you can then choose between the actual model provider in some cases, or something that people may not have heard of quite yet, which is the Azure AI Inference SDK. So we'll see this in action in a minute, but what I really like about this SDK is it's sort of like a I don't know how to describe it, like just unifies everything. So whereas if I would swap from say a Meta model to an OpenAI model and then to a Phi 3 model, I'd probably have to change some parts of my code, right? Like how you enter the system prompt, or how you actually call the off to the API might have different things in it and stuff like that. What the Azure AI Inference SDK does is just unify across that. So what you'll see in a minute is I can literally just change the name of the model and everything else stays the same. So that's a nice experience that we'll see too.
So it's even easier than like when you do it in LangChain, where you just need to define your LLM and then you can actually use that object. Here it's just changing a connection.
Yes. Yeah, and actually some of the samples in here as well, when we start digging into the code space piece, there's some cookbooks in there for LangChain, Llama Index, like how you would use all of this with them as well. And so if you are familiar with them, that's a great place to start as well, to see, you know, is this useful for me? I mean, number one, it's free and easy to try. So I feel like it's going to be useful for most people. But even that step of like, how much do I need to change my code? And am I going to swap out these models in the future? The swapping of models, I think some people often ask me like, well, how often am I going to do that? Like once I've chosen a model, like we're probably going to be okay, right? In some senses. The only thing I would say is like, yes, currently today, some models are better at some things than others, and you might do some sort of benchmarking and trying out before you put it into your code. Cool. The only thing I would say is with sort of like this move to agentic AI, Sammy, I think I've seen you doing a lot of sort of chatting with different people around agentic AI and architectures and stuff like that. The right model for the right task, in my mind, I think is going to become quite important there. And so the ability for us to quickly and easily be able to swap between these different models, but use similar code and like scaffolding could be quite interesting. That's where I'm seeing it as like, this is a good thing for me to get used to now, because I think I'm going to continuously use it again in the future as well.
Okay, something I didn't even think about. When you use agentic solutions to have different LLMs, each has their own specialty.
Because right, like I don't know, like maybe one is better at math than another, and the actual part of that agent is all about doing math. You'd want to make sure you don't have to use a sweeping sort of set of the same model for. And also, you know, even let's think about like fine-tune models, right? Fine-tuning models makes it incredibly fine-tuning anything, right? Even like old school machine learning, if you want to call that old school, is actually more like you're just making it really good at like a couple of things, and it doesn't need to be quite as generic as some of these models are as well. And again, like we might be able to do even better things with some of that, right? If we fine tune it for certain tasks and certain abilities, your agent can just pick up what it needs. So something I've kept in mind when using this as a possible cool use case. But really nice documentation here, super simple, clear. Love this. Simple things, right? Like just being able to copy and put code into a journal. Sounds trivial, makes it easier. One dependency. Yes, please. Like that is the kind of thing, like life we want to live, right? As a developer in some senses. Less dependencies, quick install, and then look at this. That's the basic sample. Just nice and simple, nice and clear. Work through it once and reuse it, right? A million times. And then there's a lot more samples, because I know what you're saying, like not everyone wants to just do one prompt, one response. Don't worry, we've got you covered as well by the looks of it. So multi-turn conversation, nice little sample you can edit, streaming the output so it looks like it's typing is always good fun. Little sample you can build on. Image, if the model is capable of image, this is a nice piece as well. We have to use image. Tooling, so like functions, and then it tells you a little bit about the rate limits. So rate limits, this is free. These are free tier type limits as well, right? I've not hit a limit, but I do know people who have hit a limit. Images hit a
Now, the
limit.
question with free always comes who actually pays. Is there data part of it? Or is it the same as that? Are we paying with our data, or is it actually free?
Oh, a good question. Well, for me, it feels like it's actually free in some senses.
Okay.
So obviously when you want to go to production, so when you want to use this like properly and you want to like actually have users using it, this is not for production, right? So like then in the docs, I thought it was quite nice to see there was this so experimenting using the API and then a going to production section. So this is kind of like, okay, like I've experimented, I've tried it out, I've figured out what I'm going to use. Now it's time to move to Azure AI. The interesting piece is, again, no code changes, right? You're just going to have to go and deploy that model in your Azure account, get an Azure account if you haven't got one, and then actually you'll be starting to pay for it instead. So that's kind of that connection point currently between them, which is, okay, done my experimentation, but if you're using all of the samples we give here, should work in exactly the same way. You're just literally bringing a different endpoint in, which is, I like that. I like that in some senses, that it doesn't feel like it's, oh gosh, now I'm going to production, I've got to do all of these changes in some senses. And the rate limits, can I be honest, I struggle a little bit with like the concept of rate limits and how many calls per second. I've always been not great at that with like Azure cost calculators and stuff like that. I'm confident enough to say I will work on it when I need to. But the rate limit tiers, you know how we saw the OpenAI had this high tier? So that's what it relates to when it says it on the model card to the right. And so you can kind of see, I find a lot of them are up there on the high tier. I can't think of one off the top of my head that I've seen with low. To request per minute, free and Copilot individual, if you get enterprise, it's a little bit more Copilot business, etc., and then free and individual, but concurrent requests is too. So you can see
it's not small, it's already quite a lot of text that you're sending in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like having a think about that, like when do you reach that limit and why are you reaching that limit? And I guess it's always that trade-off, isn't it? Like, do we continue experimenting and we just use a smaller prompt, a smaller data set, like, whatever we've done in the past, like use those same thought processes in my mind for like machine learning things where you say, right, when I run it locally, I don't run like the whole data set, with like classical machine learning. Same kind of idea, I think, here. Like, how much can I understand the usage of these before hitting those limits? And then when I'm ready, head off to Azure, and you're able to obviously get the quota that you ask for in some senses.
I think based on the limits that we see here, it's not a tool to be used to do automated testing of your models, because therefore the amount of requests is too low concurrently, or just whatever you do. Like if you want to check your RAG, if to evaluate it, and if the answers are still correct, I don't think this is still the correct place to do it.
No, and so a good one would be, as you said, like testing different models. Okay, I'm seeing some good manual output, and then once you've done kind of a small amount of manual evaluation, again, head to Azure, go get exactly the same thing with exactly the same name, deploy it there, and then obviously then you're able to obviously do more automated testing, think about deploying to production, think about getting in front, A/B testing with users or something like that as well, like that gradual rollout. Super key. Anyway, I've still not shown you the most exciting part here. So where was I? Was here. So we were just talking rate limits. For me, this is really nice. Love a little code sample of how I can run it locally, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this button, another green button, I feel like all the green buttons are super valuable on the screen. So if that's easy to remember for everyone, go to the green button. Run with code spaces. What I love about this is you literally click this button and it opens in. Here's one I made earlier. I might have to restart it. It opens in the code spaces dash modules repo. So I don't know if you know this, but if you run in a repo in code spaces, it then becomes free, as I understand it. So this, again, is not costing you. And you are able to use all of this. It comes in with cookbooks and samples. It comes in with an example.m file for you to set up. Fun fact, though, you don't even need it. This can just be obviously used if you clone the repo, and it shows you where to put your GitHub pat token and stuff like that. But if I go to my samples here, the nice bit is if you are using, where does it say it? Is it my getting started one? A personal access token is made available by the Codespaces environment. You don't have to do anything. It just works. Isn't that nice? I was like, this is a good experience. Like, I really liked it. So yeah, you can see it in that one. I can run sort of like a basic file. One of the things I quite like about some of these samples, so this is a Python example. In my samples, I'm a Python person at heart. I'm using under that unified SDK, so the Azure Inference SDK, and I've just opened basic.py basically. You've got a couple of import statements all from that Azure Inference package that you had to pip install. And then if you added a token, it would just take it from your environment variables, which is nice. And this endpoint is consistent. So I didn't add that in. I don't have to swap that out if I swap the model or anything like that. It just goes to models.inference.ai.azure.com. And then, sounds small. This is another just like friendly developer thought. All of the models and their actual name that you need to use to access them are all listed here in comments. Sounds trivial, doesn't it? But you know, when you're like experimenting, how annoying is it that you have to like, I ask like Copilot quite a lot. I'm like, what is the like code name also almost that I need to put in with all the dashes and like, is it 4K instruct or is it 128K or something like that? I can literally just copy and paste. It's a dream, which is nice. I just pop it into this model name, create a chat completions client, which takes my
So you don't need to
endpoint.
deploy it like you need to do in the Azure OpenAI
No,
environment.
I
You can
don't
just
need
use
to
it.
don't need to go to GitHub and then say like, please deploy this and then take the endpoint and take the key. No, so it's all done through that
Immediately
GitHub chat
available.
token. Yeah, it's nice. It's good. It's so good, Sammy. And then the response is basically just the messages that we're all used to, right? We're used to seeing this system prompt now with your content and then a user message. That's what the user's putting in. So I've changed this. This said something like, what is the capital of Paris, I think is the basic sample. But I've just said, write me a recipe containing strawberries, mint and chocolate. It takes in the model name. You've still got your parameters here. You obviously you don't necessarily have to have them in there if you're not going to change them, but just to show you, you can quickly change these as well. And then what I've done is I've actually printed the model name because I want you to see that I'm like how easily I'm going to change it. And then obviously just providing the actual response out as well. So if I run this, so CD, where am I? I'm in samples, Python, and then I'm in the Azure Inference SDK. Let's list that so I can see my basic.py file. That's where I am. So if I do Python basic.py and run that one, just going to scroll this up because we'll get our output in here. So there we go. So if I go up here, so the model we used was GPT-4o. Gave me a wonderful verbose response here with a delightful recipe, the set of ingredients that I might need, and step-by-step instructions, which is nice. Also, a couple of little notes at the bottom. I don't normally get that. That's a nice little ad.
Now we need an AI who can actually make it for us.
That would be a treat, wouldn't it? I'll be honest, like I am using this for like toddler friendly like dinners. Like I'm like, what, this is what I have in my fridge. I'm going to show you that in a minute actually. And then it's like, suggest something, because I'm really not a very good, like I'm not a very creative cook. And so actually this is a real win for me. But that next step, if something just then actually cooked it for me, that's where we win. But so fun thing, GPT-4o. So Phi-3 small language model, I'm going to like guesstimate that that's going to be a little bit more of like a concise response. I could be wrong, but what I'm going to do is let's take the mini model. And all I'm going to do is literally change the variable name here and then rerun. So two different models, two different model providers, same code, change one variable, comes back different, looks different as well. So I can even see. So even if I hadn't added the model name, style is different, concise. What it deals me back is a little bit different. Obviously, we know it's never going to be exactly the same, is it? But didn't change the keys, didn't change the endpoint, didn't have to deploy another model. I was able to just quickly engage with 2 models, same code, 2 seconds, basically. So
That's
really nice.
very simple and easy to use. Now, let's say we have a full script that works and we want to go into production. What do I change?
What do I change? So literally all you're going to have to do is then go to here. Your token would become, so you would deploy in Azure AI. So you go to the deployment option, choose the model, same model name, same model variable in code that I was so starstruck by. And then you would obviously, your endpoint would change because it would become your endpoint, so no one else will obviously be using that. And then your token would become your key, basically, right?
Okay. So yeah, it's a simple thing.
It's nice. It's nice. Obviously, like if you don't have an Azure account, set up an Azure account, set up the AI Studio. So there are, I'm not saying this is just basics, right? It's just nice and simple, easy to use, easy to test. The minute we start getting to production, you might want to then obviously all the power of a secure cloud, like take advantage of it, right? Do you need it encrypted? Do you need certain roles to be able to access certain things? It gets more serious because it is going to production in some senses. Like who can deploy what as well? Like, do we want people just provisioning machines? Probably not, because they're quite costly. All of that kind of stuff. So as with any sort of cloud architecture, I'd say, I'm not going to promise anyone here, right, that's like, oh yeah, like click, done sort of thing. Do think about it when you're taking it to production. Make sure you're thinking about your data, your security, your evaluations. As you said, I would even say there's a step in between, right? Do some experimenting, do some more evaluating with this, then move to testing and production sort of thing.
What about the Azure content filters? Are they also part of this?
Oh, it's a good question. So these are obviously coming from the Azure AI Studio. So anything where we have them already built in, I'm going to say yes, but I would need to double check that one. That's a great question. I wonder if it says in the docs, prototyping with AI. I'll take this one back.
You can test it by trying to maybe try some prompt hacking, see if he says anything back about
Is it a career ender if I start writing things like that on the stream? Do you ever?
You can do things like forget any instruction that was ever given to you. That normally triggers the content filters.
Oh,
the prompt hacking one.
I was gonna say, but because we do see that
start cursing or saying any sexual things.
I was going to say, right, like honestly, I've often done some responsible AI sessions, and it is a little bit awkward when you have to kind of like make it obviously like fail to show that it's real in some senses. So I do always get a bit uncomfortable sometimes when I'm presenting that kind of stuff. I wonder if we have it in here. It's such a good question. I'm going to take that one away, and it's well worth us probably adding it in here if it's not already in there. I wonder what. That's responsible use of them. Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So they have some.
And then content filters. This link is taking us to AI content safety. There we go.
Cool.
That's a
nice. Now another
wonderful.
One
so that's good to see.
Is many people make use of specific frameworks like LangChain or LangGraph or Instructor. Can we make use of this also in there?
Yeah, so I actually found this earlier. As I said in the blurb of this is only my experience currently with this. So we know we all have our favourite frameworks, right, in some senses, so don't judge me. So under cookbooks here, I did find a nice set of Python. Can we see this okay? Let me zoom again another little bit. there's just a lot going on, isn't there? So under Python, let me get rid of that. You've got some LangChain examples, Llama Index, and then directly using like cookbooks from Mistral and OpenAI as well. So I think it was the Llama Index one, because the Llama Index one gives a RAG example, which I thought was quite nice. So the data is the age-old like Tailwind Traders data by the looks of it. So I think I looked on here. Let me just move my terminal down a little bit. Oh, hey, sorry, testing the limits, obviously, of my internet here. So this is the classic Tailwind Traders tents, and so we got here a backpack, I think, and stuff like that. So just to give you context of what's going on in there. So where were we? It's just jumped. And then there's this nice RAG sample that comes in a notebook, and I was just working through this earlier. I thought it was quite nice because it actually shows you using an embedding model as well. So I always feel like the basic samples are always chat, aren't they? And so actually showing the use of embedding, showing it in the context of using Llama Index as well, was a nice move. But again, it's simply using your GitHub token here, that same model's inference endpoint, and then they set their model, just it. So same names, same interesting pieces. And then down here, they give a nice few examples as well. When I was working through it, it felt quite, it's not like 100 lines of code in here. It's nice and simple. And so then they give you some good examples of like showing that it's pulling on the information that sits. And then, you know what? I saw another good one, speaking of evaluations. If I close this data one, was it Mistral? Yeah, the Mistral AI one, I spotted that they had this evaluation notebook. And this was quite a nice sample to see. They take you basically all the way. And these, by the way, ran them first time every time as well. So like, this isn't like you sometimes you get to a notebook that's on GitHub and it's like, it doesn't run and the package is out of date and all of that kind of stuff. Right? It's frustrating. Like I had a really, really good experience so far with this kind of stuff. And so where are we at here? GitHub. So then it gives it some evaluation data. It puts it into a chat where you tell it what you want it to return and how you want it to return it. But I think my favorite bit was actually down at the bottom where they do like a custom evaluation here around relevancy and readability, and they give the sort of scores. Oh, I might have lost you a minute. Give it a second. Must have been scrolling a little too quick. There we go. And they give sort of the scores. They build out their own evaluation metric, and then it actually outputs it really nicely at the bottom. And I was like, oh, that's a good example, really, for how evaluations would work. And if people aren't doing evaluations, like I highly recommend going in and kind of just figuring out some of the samples around evaluations are very, very good. And it's important that we know, as you said, this is manual evaluation, but as it gets more automated and across larger amounts of data, it really gives you good insight into what's actually happening in your models as well.
Cool.
Just before we go there, can I show you locally?
Of course.
So same thing, but I've added in like filters. I've added in my own Python code, right, to engage and get information from my user and stuff like that. Same URI, same idea about the GitHub token, but the GitHub token is literally just in a .m file. I'm not going to show you my GitHub token right now because that would be an error. But all it does is we literally just load it, like .m, load it in. It's one variable, GitHub path, and it even gives you a sample, didn't it, in the other example. So the only difference I've made here to take it, this is on VS Code on my local machine. This is not connected to any Azure account. This is just GitHub and a GitHub Pat token. That's it. If you don't know what GitHub Pat token is, you can literally go and get them. It gives you some good information in your personal access tokens in your developer settings on GitHub. So that's where you go get them, just to let you know. And so all I've done is added one variable to there, and I can literally do the same thing. So this one's going to ask me for like a number of recipes. Let's say potato and cheese, and I don't have any dietary requirements. So it's going to go off and run. This one is where you see a little bit more how long it takes to run as well, which is interesting. And then it gives me back a couple of different things. So exactly the same thing, right? The only thing to run it completely locally, not code spaces, not none of that, is just one GitHub token, and the code is all the same. So I liked that as well, because normally, if you take it down to your machine, you feel like it's like, oh, what setup am I using? Okay, I'm on Windows with this type of Python and, all that kind of stuff. No, it was like a nice setup.
Well, I guess there's still a minimum Python version that is necessary to be able to run the
I think
library.
so. I was using what looks like from a Bug Bash 3.12. Yeah, quite a late one. So maybe worth checking that in some senses. Do create yourself an environment kernel to run it as well. I like a new, fresh sort of environment. That's why I use code spaces so much, to be honest with you as well. It's feels like it's just okay, just focus on that thing, that project, what it needs, and not worry about what else is going on this older machine at this point.
So yeah, I think if you look at the full picture, you have the visual tool on GitHub itself, on the web application, for people who just want to try, who maybe are not fully neat code and just want to try out some things, which is already a perfect place. And it can even just answer normal things. It doesn't need to be coding. It's just any kind of model. And then you have the full power of the inference library that can assist you in checking which models work the best, but based on the code that you are actually writing and not just chat. You can use it for anything that you want.
Yeah.
And you can use all kinds of libraries that are using those models.
Yep, so model provider library, or this Azure AI Inference SDK library, which is nice sort of bringing all of those different models together and calling them in exactly the same way, which we all know is nice, right? For like boilerplate template in your code as well.
Well, I think that's a pretty awesome addition to all the tools that are there already for trying out large language models, or small, let's call it just language models.
Yes, yeah, it's true. There is some fine in there.
Get rid of that LLM because we have large and small now. Just call it language models.
Yeah.
For anyone to use, because I think the C# one is quite new. It wasn't there initially. Maybe a week ago,
C#.
There.
So interestingly, I did look at this earlier because I actually come from a Java background. Like my first ever language I was taught at university was Java, and so actually C#. Then obviously I have used that at Microsoft naturally, but Python is my home. And yeah, I did spot it. Again, exactly the same thing, right? The samples are all here. Get you started wherever you're familiar. You'll just jump straight in and be able to edit these as well.
Now the question will be, does this one work together with semantic kernel?
Oh, well, so the cookbooks only has a Python section currently. And so that would be interesting, right? If it was then a C# section for cookbooks. Is there a... You're testing me now. Here we go. Under the samples, I don't have the C#. Oh, this might be an old environment as well, though. I've been using this for like since it was released, a good month in some senses. So actually, it might just be that this is not.
Was there last week, so
no. So this is probably an old code space. Code space models, isn't it? GitHub.com /code space -models. Will this just get me here? Hopefully. No. Page not found. Okay. No idea. What am I looking for there? Actually, you know where you can get it? Marketplace. See full documentation. Let me go back to samples.
Okay, that brings you to.
Oh, that's for the
Yeah,
SDK samples. That's not the. It's definitely here. It's definitely here. Where is it? Is it in this bit of the code? Oh, this is gonna bother me, you know. We're gonna stop the stream and I'm gonna be like, I found it. But it's definitely in here. I've been on that. That's what's getting obviously updated, sort of thing, to back the code space.
We need to make sure that people can try
interesting
out
one.
also.
Absolutely. Sure I was gonna say, so I'll pop it in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Cool. All right. I think Amy, thank you very much for this lovely demo and some explanation about GitHub models. Now it's up to us to start trying and using them. And if you do not have access yet, register for it, and fingers crossed that you get access very soon to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the same place, GitHub gh.io/models. Go there if you've been interested by what you've seen. Go get yourself on that wait list as people get let in. And then, yeah, you can obviously try this out. It's free, naturally rate limited, designed for development experimentation. And then when you're ready, off to Azure for a very similar experience. So it's a nice connection point.
Okay, well, Amy, thank you very much for your time. For everyone who's still listening, register and subscribe to our LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter or X, and see when our next episode will be. And of course, we will announce it soon. Again, it's already announced on LinkedIn, so you can already say, I'll be joining. So hope to see you there. So thank you all. Still have a great day, great evening, or in whatever time zone you are. Thank you for joining the Global AI Community Notes, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.